very good afternoon to you. Hello and welcome to Xandermonium, the talk show that gets you talking. I'm Xander Gibb, and on today's show, along with my co-host, Tony Losacco, I will be looking at this week's most newsiest items and taking your calls. And I will also be speaking to medium Marisa Liza Pell and also speaking to, from New Direction Canada, Wendy Gritter. More to come in a mere moment. So you can interact with us during the show in the chat room at the bottom of the page. Keep scrolling down. Now, if it won't let you type in the chat, you need to join with either Facebook or Twitter. It takes a couple of seconds. So if you do that, you'll be able to join in the conversation. You can also call us on 347-884-9061. That's 347-884-9061 with your comments and questions. And you can also tweet us. Oh, yes, all mod cons here. You can tweet me at Xander Gibb, XanderGibb, capital X, capital G. Don't forget that at symbol. Tony's Twitter handle is at FullStory2014. That's FullStory 2014. Marisa, her Twitter handle is at Marisa Pell, MarisaPell. And Wendy from New Direction, I keep wanting to say One Direction for some reason, her Twitter handle is at WRitter, WRITTER. Tweet me if you're too shy, and I will make your point for you. Oh, yes, indeed, I will. So the storm of the century was destined to be upon us this week. Picture it, if you will, frozen personified. Cars were ordered to vacate the streets by 11 p.m., which was reminiscent of military law. Very scary. Mayor Bill de Blasio was giving press conferences left, right, and center, whilst NYC had been caught unawares in the past by weather conditions. Mayor Bill was not going to be caught with his pants down, metaphorically speaking, of course. Oh, no, sirree. So we did have to wonder why people had to be told not to go out during the blizzard. But hey, this is New York, so go figure. Now, the snow clearers were out with military precision, ensuring minimum buildup, or were supposed to be, until the blizzarding hour, and then it arrived. Most went to bed, and we think we would have all the prescribed 3 feet of snow, and that would be all the snow that occurred. So we awakened to a scene from Frozen. Now, all precautions were taken, and the blizzarding weather conditions changed direction. How dare it change direction mid-blizzard? So nature is such an unpredictable force and can be our friend, but from time to time can be our enemy. Now, the blizzard, whilst not operating as predicted, was well and truly anticipated, and then some. Now, many complained about the level of precautions taken and the cost, etc. But I ask you, is it not better to be safe than sorry? Now, many criticized Mayor de Blasio for being overcautious, but actually, believe it or not, I applaud his overcaution. The response was actually perfect for the situation, and then some. Now, I would far rather be prepared for the worst than be totally unprepared and taken by surprise. Now, it made me wonder why in life we do not take every necessary precaution, and why some people, well, just wing it. So as we get older, it's crucial to forward plan, because failing to plan is planning to fail. Yes, that's the age-old adage. How much will you forward plan? That was Xander's Soapbox for this week. If you'd like to come and get on your soapbox about any subject in particular, you can contact me at Xander at XanderGibb.com. That's Xander at XanderGibb.com. Now, while my teleprompter has its little issues, I will have to revert to my paper copy. Don't know what's going on there. So joining me to break down the harder topics this week, the issues that matter, is my co-host, broadcaster, a libertarian, and free thinker. I can't even get in. I'm going to have to... Can't even play any music. The page has just frozen. All this talk of frozen, I guess that is why. So I can't even get in to bring my guest on. I don't know what is happening with this software, but we will continue. If you are listening to this, Tony, we will endeavor to get you back on very quickly. I don't know what is going on with this software. Oh no. Okay. So we're going to try and go back into the show now. If it will let us do so. Alrighty. Sorry about this. We often have technical difficulties with the software for Blog Talk. So let's see if it's letting me back into the studio. I do apologize for this break in transmission. As per usual, I'm having issues with the Blog Talk software. It's not letting me get back into the studio. Oh, we are there. We are in. So now I will be able to bring on even the fabulous Tony Losacco. Welcome to the show, Tony. How are you doing?
Good, Xander. How are you?
I am good. I'm stressing because the whole of the software just froze. I think it was all the talk of frozen, but we will have to see. So, how has your week been? And please tell me that it's been excruciatingly cold down there too.
It's been beautiful and sunny, and I've been pounding the pavement involved in local politics in my community, of all things.
Really?
Yeah, some people in my non-deed restricted, privately owned private property park are trying to turn it into a 55 and older deed restricted community and kick all anybody under 55 out.
So I've always wondered about that. If they turn a community into like an over 55 community, what about the people that are under 55? Are they supposed to have to just leave or what?
Well, that's what the conversation I had with them, and they didn't want me to fight them. They wanted me to support them because they said me and anybody here would be grandfathered in. It was for future residents. And I said, that's not right. You're going to deny families and children to come into this place. Why do they not have a right to live here? Because they're saying that that's the only way to clean up the park and make it safe from crime. And I said, you know what? You guys tried that crap in Germany with the Jews. They tried that in the South with the blacks, always blaming a specific population for all the problems and discriminating. And it's no different when you as older people try to discriminate against younger people. We have the right to live where we'd like to live too.
Exactly, and especially if you've already been living there when they make the change. So how are you gonna combat this? Are you gonna get a lobby together to do something about it? Because you obviously have something in writing to give you rights to your tenure or your tenancy, whatever it is.
Exactly. First of all, it would be very hard for them to do because it is private property. They'd have to actually petition the state to change the deeds, which would require like 80 or 90% of all the homeowners agreeing, which they don't have. But I'm just fighting them for the sake of fighting it so they don't pass it. I'm going door to door with flyers. I have a petition that I'm having residents sign that are against it. And they just keep telling me, oh, you're a losing battle. We're all for this. You're going to lose. And I'm like, well, we'll see. I'm going to fight you. This is my home.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think that the part of the problem is when they want to make these changes, they don't always take into consideration the people that are there already, you know.
And, I would have had no problem if they went about it the honest way. I still would have fought it, but I would have been a lot less aggressive if they had just said, look, we just want a 55 and older park, so we're going to try to change it. But what they've done is they created a homeowners association saying the neighborhood's deteriorated, crime, break-ins. They've scared all the people, and they're saying the only solution is to get rid of the young people. And that's just wrong.
Right.
Like I said, that's the same tactics the Nazis used with the Jews, So anybody young is going to commit crime, apparently, so you have to ban young people under 55 from the park.
Absolutely, and that's a great segue into the first topic we're going to talk about today because it's actually based in Florida. I don't know if you heard, but this week Florida prosecutors announced on Friday actually that an aggravated assault charged against former neighborhood watchman George Zimmerman will not proceed. The charge was stemming from a domestic incident earlier in the month after the alleged victim recanted. Now, Zimmerman, who shot and killed Trayvon Martin and was consequently acquitted in 2013, has had several brushes with the law since his trial, the latest being his arrest on January 9th involving his then girlfriend, who had accused him of throwing a wine bottle at her and smashing a cell phone during an argument. Mr. Zimmerman claims he acted in self-defense when he shot and killed Trayvon Martin on February 2012. On Friday's announcement, that marks the third time that he has been accused of a crime but not prosecuted for domestic incidents since he shot and killed Trayvon Martin. Now, his lawyer said he was pleased that the charge will be dropped. I'm sorry, the software is gone again. You'll have to just excuse me 1 second. His lawyer is pleased that the charges are dropped, and he said he was disappointed that the arrest was ever made. Zimmerman remains unemployed despite being acquitted of Trayvon Martin's murder. Now, wouldn't you think that this guy would just try and keep his head down?
I would think so, but I think it goes back to a lot of what you and I talked about when the story first broke. This was just kind of a bad guy. He doesn't stand for the average neighborhood watch. He doesn't stand for the average white guy, and actually he wasn't white, but we won't even go there, But, I mean, it was just the wrong place, the wrong time, an unfortunate tragedy, and race had nothing to do with it. His true colors are coming out. The type of person he was, it wasn't anything but that. I think it just proves that, look, this was just an unfortunate incident of a bad guy doing a stupid thing. Or a dumb guy doing a stupid thing, maybe.
But I think that it's unfortunate that he didn't get prosecuted. They found him not guilty of Trayvon Martin's murder because I think the guy thinks he can walk on water now. I mean, most people after a brush with the law would want to keep their head down, but this guy just seems, I don't know, he just seems intent on kind of like having his name in lights and having people talk about him. He still interacts with people on Twitter and he gets kind of attacked for being on social media because let's face it, if you killed someone, whether it was that you'd shot them with a gun or you'd run them over in a car, you would you would always feel bad about it. You could never just move on.
True. I mean, OJ did the same thing, though, if you recall. That's how he got himself into trouble. He just couldn't stay out of trouble, keep on under the radar, and they eventually put him away for a different crime. These guys get off. They should just go hide in a hole somewhere and take, what's her name, Casey Anthony's example.
Right.
Be like, thank God I'm scum and I got away with it.
Yeah, I just have to scratch my head and wonder why this guy is kind of like still walking around and is not, is not just kind of like not living in hiding, but kind of like keeping his head down, you know?
Mhm.
So do you think that this is do you think that this has anything to do with his father? Is his father quite high up in the Florida judiciary, or he's got some job that, because it's been suggested that there's been influence from his father?
Mhm. Well, I don't know honestly, and I don't know enough about his family to comment on that. I just think that obviously with his record since that time, this wasn't some one-time mistake, that really he's not operating with a full deck, or he's got some violent tendencies or bullying tendencies or whatever. I mean, I don't want to judge the man. I don't know him personally, and I don't know the situation, but obviously it wasn't limited to him picking on some black kid and shooting an unarmed black kid. Obviously, this is not a, quote, good, normal person.
No, definitely not. I mean, because, you know, I mean, I really don't want to kind of like go over all of what went on that day again, but anybody in their right mind, if they were told by the police to stay in the car, if you're saying you're afraid, why would you not just stay in the car?
True. And see, there's been repercussions in Florida, by the way. Like with the community thing I've been involved with, I try to contact the sheriffs to try to get a neighborhood watch started to offset what they're trying to do with the 55 and older thing. And you know what the sheriff's office told me? We don't do those no more. We don't want people going out and patrolling. We just want you to call us and the watches from your house. If you see something, say something. We don't want private citizens roaming around the streets and patrolling anymore. And that's the outcome, I'm sure, directly of Zimmerman. And that's totally changed from a few years back. They used to organize like neighborhood patrols and things like that. So I guess anything, there's a repercussion.
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, the police that I have spoken to, you know, not in the Florida area, but, you know, in New York State, have actually said to me that they don't appreciate vigilante action. They need to do the job that they need to do. And it should not be for members of the public to walk around and shoot people, you know, as part of saying that they're patrolling and keeping the area safe, because it just kind of like gives rise to vigilantism in my book. It really does.
Well, did you hear, Xander, in the news about the other incident that occurred right here in Tampa Bay, where a legal registered gun owner walked into Walmart and the guy attacked him thinking he was about to shoot up the Walmart and beat him up? And that guy was arrested and charged with a crime because the problem was the guy wasn't doing anything wrong. He had a legitimate, lawful gun carry permit, and the guy just jumped to conclusions. But he thought he was being a hero and saving the day. So I felt quite bad for that man because he's charged with assault. And, you know, I hope the judge has some leniency there and understands, wait, with everything that goes on, the guy was just trying to do the right thing.
I mean, I always think there's going to be a worry with people that have concealed carry permits. I mean, the only people, I mean, I'm not even sure that I want the police to have guns, but if they have to have guns, then okay. But, you know, when members of the public are walking into stores, there are some stores that have signs in the window saying, you know, that you can't come in if you have a gun. And I think that that's perfectly fine because you want your customers to feel safe. I would not feel safe with someone I did not know touting a gun in a public place because there's that potential they could shoot you or you could get shot.
Right.
But I think that the pro gun lobby has kind of made it, you know, they've kind of took it like a step further. But I think it's, you know, I think it's a concern. It is a genuine concern because you can't tell just by looking at someone whether they're legally carrying a gun or illegally. Do you know what I mean? You can't tell just from looking whether that gun is a legal gun or an illegal gun.
Absolutely, and it causes problems and people to be fearful. However, I do understand some of what the gun rights people are saying. For example, I mean, if I'm in a mall and somebody pulls a gun and starts shooting, right? If I had the choice between my cell phone and dialing 911 and standing next to somebody with a concealed carry permit, I'd choose stand next to the guy with the concealed carry permit, because he's going to take care of the situation a lot quicker than me dialing 911 and waiting for a police response. And that is really what they're saying, that look, this is actually a check against the bad people. We're there. We can respond immediately if something happens.
Exactly. I mean, I have to say, and no disrespect to any of the Floridians living out there that listen to the show, but I find Florida kind of an odd state with laws and the things that it allows. Because you were telling me earlier in the day about what is it, some group or some individual that has taken issue with gay marriage in Florida and says that it's discriminatory against straight people. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. This is the biggest joke, and your regular viewers know that I'm the last person to defend normally the gay rights groups, and I've taken issue with them many times. But this is just a ridiculousness. Basically, the unmarried people, the story was on Channel 10 News, and they said, heterosexual discrimination. Tune into Channel 10 to find out how heterosexuals are being discriminated against. They did an actual TV news story on this, so of course I wanted to know. Apparently, people that are unmarried in Florida that have lived together for 10 or 15 years, their employers won't give them the benefits of married couples. But if you're gay, you can get the same benefits as a married couple. So they're saying that's discrimination against the heterosexuals, and it's okay to be gay but not heterosexually unmarried. They're forgetting a fundamental fact, which is you can't legally marry in Florida, or you just now can.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
But there's no common law marriage in a lot of states like New York. Like in some states, and it's like this in the UK too. In some states, when you've been together a period of time, I can't remember if it's 8 or 10 years, but you're classified as being common law married, and you go and register somewhere, not Tiffany's, just somewhere with the local authority, and then you will get the same rights and et cetera that are available to married couples. But it doesn't happen in New York State, because I did some research last year for a segment I was doing. They don't do it in New York State, and I don't know how many states actually do it. But why would that make a difference to what this guy is saying? I mean, I don't know if they have common law marriage in Florida. But if they don't, it's certainly not the fault of gay people that campaigned for years to actually get, same-sex marriage.
Well, and the funny thing is, if it was in another state, they would have a valid argument. Like gay marriage, I believe it's legal in New York State, right?
Gay marriages, yeah, but not common law marriage.
But gay marriages. Okay, so now if this happened in New York State, they would have a legitimate point. Why are unmarried gay couples given marital rights when unmarried heterosexual couples aren't given those same benefits? Because that would mean, yes, that's an unfair treatment. But in a state like Florida, where gay people don't have the option of being married, that's an illegitimate argument. It's completely ridiculous. Now, once every gay person in Florida has the right to marry, then you can make the argument that that's unfair to give unmarried gay, because the reason we don't marry is because we can't. I mean, if you're shacking up with somebody and you don't get married, that's your problem. I don't have that option.
No, exactly. So why is a news station giving this airtime if it has no credence at all? If it's got no standing legally, why are news stations even covering things like this?
I'm glad you asked, because I have a theory on it. We've talked about this a little bit. Everybody's being discriminated against and offended nowadays, no matter who it is. It's the new one.
Right.
And I think this is a reaction to that, So I think people are fed up with all the fake crap that goes on, you know, and all the fake, oh, I'm being discriminated against. And I think the majority of people, being a majority, are upset that minorities are getting more rights and the rights of the majority are being stompled on. So now you're getting people going to these ridiculous things as kind of a reaction to that. And I think, like, for instance, the gay community created its own problem with things like this, you know?
Right.
I'm still very strong.
Absolutely. Because if it's not...
I still can't believe...
Far too many people complain about things and say that it's discrimination when it's not, you know, substantive. It's got no basis to it. And so what it does, it's a bit like the story of the boy that cried wolf. And when someone comes along with a legitimate claim, it kind of deflates that somewhat because of the people that have been coming along with claims that just have no substance to them, you know?
Exactly. I mean, everybody wants to be a victim. I've often said that the fight for gay marriage is baloney, and that's a very controversial stand, but I'll tell you why I feel that way. They have still not passed in Congress, nor has there been an effort, a real effort, on the gay community to fight for the Equal Rights Amendment for employment, which would guarantee that nobody's discriminated on or fired in a job because they're gay. And it's like, why are you focusing on a marital thing when I could lose my job in several states just because somebody found out I was gay? Now, that's a civil rights issue for me. And see, that's my point. It's like when people pick on the wrong things and put the wrong issue to the forefront, people react. And they react harshly and in an opposite way.
I think the concern is, and you know, again, this is something we talked a lot about before, is that civil rights, as far as I'm concerned, should be dealt with at a federal level, and every state should be responsible for making sure that those rights are carried out, because it's not fair for some states to have some, you can have some rights, and then you cross over the water, or like in New Jersey, you know, if one thing was acceptable here, you know, that you were covered by the law, and then you just go over the bridge into New Jersey, and you're not, that's not fair. I think there is a federal, you know, there should be a federal action on these rights, not just leaving it to the local hicks to decide, you know.
Absolutely. And I don't know, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Oh, that's what I was going to say. What people often get confused in our country, too, is the difference between fairness and equality. And there's a difference, and people always lump being fair to everybody in with everybody being equal. But the truth is, if you have somebody with equal rights, that's not necessarily being fair to the population. For example, you and I could work you could work a 1-hour day at my job, and I could work an 8-hour day, right? So our employer treats us both as equals, and you're equal to me, therefore you get paid for the full day. Well, then that's not fair to me. So fairness and equality often contradict, but you hear them put side by side like it's the same thing.
But surely equality should mean having the same rights as everybody else, not more rights. Because if you've got more rights than anybody, than other sections of the community, that's not equality. You know, equality comes from the word equal.
Well, and that's something, and this is going to be pretty controversial probably. I don't necessarily agree that equality is the right thing with rights and everything. When you have a minority population, be it gay, be it disabled, transgendered, be it African American, that does not necessarily mean that minority should have the same rights as the 99% of the other people. Okay? Especially when it interferes with the rights of the majority, and I think that's the test. You want to protect the rights of that minority at all costs. You don't want them to be discriminated against, but you don't want to go overboard with that protection where you trample on the rights and the feelings and the opinions of the majority of people.
I mean, I agree there has to be balance. It's imperative that there's balance in all of this. But I think that, when I hear, when I hear the excuses that some people come up with, like, we don't want gay marriage because it tears up the fabric of society, and we don't want gay marriage because it destroys families and all these things, I'm an intelligent person. I'm more than happy to sit down with you and deal with your logical arguments, but how? I mean, what is societal fabric, and what gay person would do anything bad to fabric anyway? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely,
it's just ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. In fact, now I can't verify this for a fact, but I've heard that the studies say that actually the gay marriages are more stable than the heterosexual marriages nowadays, including for children and families. Some conservative Christians have broken the barrier with that and said, wait a second. Why are we as conservatives fighting this? These people want to get married. They want to have families. They want to be committed for life. That's as conservative as anything can be. That's what we want. The heterosexual families are sleeping around and falling apart. We should be supporting this. It doesn't make sense. But, of course, they get really drowned out by their fellow conservatives right away. That's a minority view. But they're at least the intelligent ones looking at it from an intelligent point of view. Like, what's wrong with this? How is this destroying society? This is strengthening it when two people want to be in a completely monogamous, dedicated relationship and marry and raise children. That's what we want to encourage when families are falling apart.
Right. Yeah, I think there is a genuine kind of concern about. It's one thing to disagree with something, but your reasons for why you disagree or you're so vehemently opposed, they need to be kind of like realistic. I've had so many discussions on gay marriage and been on panels to discuss it and things like that, and I've heard so many ridiculous things about why it shouldn't happen. But something I heard this week that was quite odd. Was going from same-sex marriage to marrying oneself. Yasmin Alabi recently invited family and friends to celebrate her 40th birthday in a unique way. Unique, you say? Yes. It seems Yasmin Alabi had arranged a surprise marriage ceremony in which she married herself. You can't quite get my head around that one. I've been saying for a few years that if I hadn't gotten married by the time I was 40, I'd just have a wedding by myself. Alabi told ABC News last week. I decided I didn't want it to be a joke. I wanted to have a celebration of myself. My wedding was going to be about making a commitment to love myself and honor myself and to know my self-worth. She even hired an event planner, Daryl Colon, who said she was the easiest and hardest client he ever had to work with. He said he loved that Alabi decided to plan such an unconventional event, so he chose an equally unusual venue, the Houston Museum of African American Culture. 3 ministers, her elder sister, and a niece and a friend then asked together, who thinks Yasmin is 40 and fabulous? Cologne said. He added that the 160 guests in the room chimed, we do. Alabi said she was overwhelmed and started crying herself when she sang the second verse. There are miracles in this life that I must achieve, but I know at first that it starts inside of me. So, Tony, is self-marriage going to tear at the family values and destroy societal fabric? What says you?
I say yes, it is, actually, and it defeats the whole cause of gay marriage, believe it or not. See, here's why I say this. The marriage was intended not just, and this is where the conservative Christians get it really wrong, it's not just, and this is the whole gay rights point with it, marriage is not just about a social affirmation of commitment. It involves two people uniting with legal rights and financial rights. That's why it's a legal union of two houses, like the monarchs used to unite whole countries because of that. It is meant to unify two different families, basically, together as one financially and legally. that's got nothing to do with affirming yourself. If you want to affirm yourself, I'm all for it, and have an affirmation of myself party and declare how great you are, that's fine. I support that as a life coach. But
let's call it that.
With the,
let's call it that. Not call it. Not give
right.
it. Put a big bow on it and say I'm marrying myself, because it's damn ridiculous. And people are saying in the chat room too. You know, they're saying that it's just a stupid party. You know, Joe is saying it's just a stupid party, and I have to agree. I mean, don't kind of big it up to be something else. You know, something other than it is. I mean, it's all right having this same-self marriage, but you know, wait till same-self divorce comes around. How is that going to look?
Right.
I mean, what do you do? Divide your assets between you and you? I mean,
I almost have my conspiracy theory mind kicks in, and I almost think that these are plants by the Christian right to prove their point that, see, this is the floodgates opening up. Now everybody's going to marry their cat, their dog, themselves, and their car. I almost feel like the stories like this and people like this were put up to it by that lobby to prove that gay marriage is the downfall of society. It seems very suspicious.
Yeah. But it just, you know, I mean, I don't know, maybe she's got a book coming out or a new fragrance range or something that she wanted to get publicity for. But I mean, I don't know, it just, if you got an invitation in the post on Monday morning and someone you knew was inviting them to a marriage where they were marrying themselves, where would that go? Because I know for me it would be ripped up and thrown in the bin because it's ridiculous. Unless they want me to DJ the event, and then I'll charge them an enormous fee and make some money in the process. But it's ridiculous, isn't it? Let's face it.
It's ridiculous, and I've got a different way of handling things than you, Xander. I'd actually go there and hope that they have that part of the ceremony where they say, if anybody objects, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. Because
and then everybody could get up.
I would go just to object and say, this is ridiculous. You can't marry yourself. How are you already? You're already unified with yourself legally, financially. How are you unifying with somebody else? Please get over it. Don't call it a marriage.
I mean, I just think it would be a messy divorce. I mean, how do you split your assets between yourself and yourself? I mean, that would be so hard to actually do. I really do. But let's face it. You know, even in the chat room, there's this genuine consensus that it's damn ridiculous. People in the chat room, if you got an invitation to say, come to a wedding between myself and myself, what would you do? Would you RSVP or would you RSVP it right into the bin? Tell us what you think. Tell us what you think out there as well, 347-884-9061. If you got an invitation inviting you to a wedding that someone was marrying themselves, would you go just to see, you know, just for the sheer hell of it? Or would you would you just chuck it in the bin and think, stop being so darn stupid? Tell us what you think out there. Kathy in the chat room said that she would text me to get a life. I believe that from Kathy. She'd be like, you're marrying yourself. Don't you need to see a psychiatrist? It's absolutely crazy.
I must say, though, after listening to President Obama's State of the Union speech, I would have thought maybe he was going to marry himself. I mean, he congratulated himself a billion times for things he had nothing to do with. I thought maybe he was going to propose to himself.
I found that very odd. And do you know the other thing I found really odd? There was no American flag in the room. What was that all about?
I didn't notice that. That's an interesting observation. I mean, I drew the line when he took credit for the low gas prices indirectly. It was like everybody with a brain knows the President of the United States, whether gas prices go higher or lower, it's got nothing to do with the President.
No,
and
it's
when
oil
he said
prices.
that, I was like, oh, my gosh.
No, you can't blame the President for that because oil prices fluctuate all the time. So that's not something he can be personally blamed for. Oh, we're getting some stick in the chat room. We're being told to leave Obama alone and to pick on a Bush. The show is not long enough to start picking on Bush. If we started picking on Bush, the show would need to be hours long. Apparently either that or Donald Trump. That would just be too easy. That's like that is just like sport. Yes, it really would be. So, Tony, we have a shortened section today, so we're coming to the end of our time. Tell people what you're up to. Tell them where they can find you on social media, and let people know what's going on.
Okay. I have both a YouTube and I
don't know what's going on, Tony, but you're breaking up, sir.
A YouTube site where I post videos occasionally detailing current events. The last one was on the State of the Union. If people are interested on my objections, they can watch the video on YouTube where I basically go point by point, and it's called The Full Story. It's my YouTube channel. I also have a Facebook page that goes by the same name, The Full Story, where you can hear my comments and my political rants, and basically there's two sides to every story. Most of the time you're only hearing a sound bite and what people want you to hear. I'm an equal opportunity offender, Bush included, Republican, Democrat, conservative, even libertarian occasionally. You hear me, Rand Paul, you're not a real one. Had to get that in, sorry.
So somebody asked me the other day if I would vote for Rand Paul, and I said yes, but he would need to get himself a better stylist, because the guy just doesn't look very presidential. I mean, what is that perm about? It's like so 80s, you know? I know he listens to the show, so Rand, get yourself a stylist, dude.
Xander, before I go really quick, I have a suggestion for a future show. You should call it the Apocalypse of Politics, and you should do a full show on what the next presidential election's looking like. Another Clinton versus another Bush. I mean, it's like the end of the world as we know it.
I don't think she's going to run. I really don't. I don't think Hillary is going to run, and I'll tell you for why. Now, I have to say allegedly, but allegedly there is some kind of stuff going on with the husband now, similar to what was in office. Accusations have been made, and I think that it's going to affect her presidential run. But you are right. We should definitely do a politics show very soon, so let's set that up. But for today, Tony, thank you very much for joining us. Tony Losacco, make sure you check him out on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. Thanks a lot, Tony. Have a great week, and give our love to
Thank you, Xander. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye. That was Tony Losacco. Make sure you check him out on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, and tell him that Xander sent you. So my next guest, Marisa Liza Pell, got the wrong teeth in today, is a medium, intuitive, and is the host of Intuitate Radio, a show that I've been a guest on several times. Marisa is part of the Xandermonium family and comes back to our show from time to time to talk about her many projects. Now, on a show she appeared on last year, she predicted I would be getting a TV show, and boy, was she right. Please join me in welcoming back to the show the one, the only, the fabulous Marisa Liza Pell. Hey, Marisa, how you doing?
Hi, Xander. How are you?
I am fabulous. Apart from this cold weather, which I'm sure you're getting in your neck of the woods too. It's too cold, and I want it to be the summer.
Oh my God, I know. It's really cold out here in the Northeast. I can tell you that.
Absolutely. Here too, in New York City on the East Coast. So do you remember that prediction you made last year regarding me getting a TV show, and I'm now 10 shows in?
You know what? It's weird. When I say things, I don't usually remember what I tell people because it kind of comes from a different place. But you did remind me about that because we had talked about it a couple times since then. I don't actually remember telling you, but I remember, what I do remember is a vision of seeing you on a plane. So I don't know if that actually happened, you were traveling at all, but I do remember the vision of you on a plane.
They've not asked me to fly to anywhere to interview anyone yet, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Some nice warm destination would be a nice thing. So tell us what you've been up to, because I believe your radio show is starting its next series very soon, and you're going to live, aren't you?
Yeah, we were pretty much on a pre-recorded time slot, which was a Saturday afternoon. We, started in Two-A-Date Radio last January, and then we felt that we were like getting in the zone where we had a crew of people. It was starting to get like a really great vibe and edge, and we had a lot of people on the show all the time, and our concept was really getting popular. So I basically went to the manager of the station. I said, I really think the show's got some legs. And he said, I really think it does too. I said, I really don't want to be on this time slot anymore. And he said, well, I'm willing to work with you and see if we could get this sold to some area restaurants in the Princeton area. And right now we have our first restaurant who purchased the time, and we are going to be going live on location in front of a live studio audience every Friday for the next 13 weeks starting February 13th. Yes. So basically people could come in, have lunch, and they could watch the show, and also they had an opportunity to come up, tell us about their love and relationship dilemma, and we have our panel of, like The View, you have your panel of experts, and you also have your panel of psychics and mediums. So you have the relationship experts, and you got your psychics and mediums kind of diving into a person's love life and following what they're doing and giving them insight on how to improve it or get out.
Brilliant. I definitely am going to have to come along to one of those and bring a camera and do a segment on it for the TV show, because that sounds really interesting. So who aside from yourself is going to be involved with that?
Oh, we have tons of characters. It's like reality radio that it developed into over the course of the year, and everybody has their little nicknames and hashtags. So we have friends that are coming on. We have our co-host Stable Gina, which I know that you were familiar with. We had started to follow her love life, and she wasn't a co-host when the show had started, but everybody kind of transitioned into their own lives and did their own thing, and Gina just happened to stay, and so she became the co-host of the show. So you probably remember her, but I don't know if you'd remember any of the other characters since you've been on. There's been a lot of different people that have been connected to the show.
Right. Well, that sounds really good. So, if people follow your Facebook page, they'll be able to get the links for that and everything else. My brain has just gone dead. What's your Facebook page called? Connections Beyond.
Yeah, Connection Beyond and Medium Marisa Pell. So if you type that in, I know it's a long Facebook name, but they don't like you to change it. I've tried to change it a couple times, but I don't know why I can't change the title, but it is a little bit longer. But if you just put in Connection Beyond and Medium Marisa Pell, or go to my website, which is just simply connectionbeyond.com, there's Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest links on there to get connected and interactive.
So, Marisa, tell me what's all this big hoo-ha about Mercury retrograde and the period that we're in with Mercury retrograde right now. What is that all about?
Well, Mercury retrograde happens 3 times a year for 3 weeks at a time. We're actually in the retrograde period, but before the retrograde you have a shadow period, and after the retrograde you have a post-shadow. So usually the 3 days prior to the retrograde actually going active, those are the worst 3 days, and it basically affects communication on all levels. So it could affect your electronics, your voicemail, your cell phone, any new contracts. So I always tell people during the retrograde, don't get married, buy a new house, buy a new car, buy new clothes. Obviously people do it, but if you have control over it, take a new job, look for new, new contracts or solicit new business, because during a retrograde, the planet doesn't go backwards. It's just an appearance, an illusion of going backwards. So you're kind of confused and a little bit, muddled, but also it's a very big time for misunderstandings and miscommunication between people. But the good thing is with the retrograde is usually it does get ironed out. So whatever like miscommunications happen during the retrograde, usually they do get cleared up. So there's a lot of like mistakes, that kind of thing. But what's good about the retrograde, if you have a business, old clients returning, you could do very well. So anything with a re in front of it, return, replace, re-edit, redecorate, redo, any of the re's, very, very good. It's a very nostalgic period, so you might find during this last week or the couple weeks coming up, you might be thinking about people you haven't talked to in a while. This is a great example of retrograde. I'm coming back on your show, Xander. So It's like this is a retrograde. But let's say you ask a guest who you haven't ever asked before to come on. They might have, say they'll come on, and then the last minute they might cancel, or they might say, they might have forgotten, or something may happen to new guests that you have coming on the show, and like tie up loose ends or go back to old business and finish it. So it does have its positives.
Right. So I have to ask you this because Joe in the chat room is asking. She wants you to predict who's going to win the game today.
Oh, my God. I am not even going to go there because I could tell you I have tried over the last 5 years to pick a team, and it's always the other team that wins. So I find that I don't do well with the Super Bowl. I have to say, I'm not a psychic, I'm a medium, so they're very, very different. It's like a lawyer and a doctor. A medium connects with people on the other side. I do receive intuitive thoughts and insights, but as far as like game predictions and stuff, that's more on the psychic end of the world, and I can pick one for you, but it'll probably be the other team that wins.
So do you find that a lot of people kind of think that you're able to do things that you can't do? Because most people have their idea about what a medium is. Tell us what a medium actually is and what they do.
Yeah, a lot of people think psychics and mediums are cut from the same cloth, and it's really not the case. We're very, very different ends of the spectrum. A psychic is more of a future prediction on the earth plane. So you go to see a psychic, you ask about your love life, your relationships, your job, and they predict it. This is what's going to happen. A medium, I'm like a postman. I take the message and I deliver it to the person. So I have a spirit that's connected to me of someone that is deceased or that has passed on, and they give me information in symbol form, thoughts, feelings, words, visuals, and I have to put it into the English language and then deliver the message to the person that it's supposed to be meant for. So mediumship, there's a third entity, which is spirit, and psychic work, there really isn't.
Right. So do you I know quite a few people that are mediums and psychics and stuff, and some mediums and psychics have a real problem switching it off. Do you ever have that problem?
I think because I do it full time. If I didn't do that, I would have issues, big time issues in life. I do it so much. I do very large events, and I'm reading people, families, one-on-ones. I've been doing it full time for 15 years. So if I don't shut it off, there would be no normal life. Like when I go to the grocery store or go to the deli it's off, completely off. So I need that for my sanity, really.
Oh, I don't do that because I have a friend, and she told me she actually has to wear a hat. She puts on a woolly hat, and that she feels like that shields her a little bit. Now I don't know if there's any truth in that, or it's just like a placebo kind of thing, but it kind of works for her. So do you often get messages for people while you're with them, and do you always share those messages that you get?
The closer I get to somebody emotionally, and they're having a problem, or a friend, it's harder for me when I get close to people because I don't want to see bad things, or I don't want to feel anything bad. So the more I am disconnected from the person emotionally, the better chance I'll get of seeing things clearer. Like I don't
Right.
read for my family or anything like that.
No, but I guess I have a friend who's a master, and she every time we go out, people say, "Oh, my shoulder hurts. Can you rub my shoulder?" Do you kind of like people always trying to get you to kind of channel for them?
I think the people that know me in my social network know that like it's just Marisa, like just leave her alone because
Right.
I just need to have fun and stuff. But yeah, like in the beginning of my career, I'd go to the nail salon and they'd be like, "What do you do?" And I'd be like, "This is what I do." And I've learned over the course of time that if I want any sort of space to just zone out, not telling people what I do is really like smart, because
Right.
then I get more drained. Because even if they don't ask you, you could feel them like looking at you like they want a cookie. You know what I mean? It's like, I want what you have, and they're like zombies, like staring at you, and you're like, you know that they want something, and it's draining. So I just keep quiet.
Absolutely. I totally get that. So you've got an event coming up at the end of this month, am I right?
Yes, but however, the date is in flux right now, so it looks like it's going to be in Newtown, Pennsylvania, and then I have an event coming up on March 6th in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and that's where I'm from, at the Hilton Scranton Conference Center. But those tickets are going to be going on sale tomorrow, so everything will be on my website. We're a little in flux with the dates because the dates got switched with the retrograde a little bit, so we did have a set date, and now we're waiting on that date for tomorrow. So if
that
people
darn
go
retrograde.
I know, you can't really, you try to start things up, and it's like an engine that's trying to start up. You start it up a few times, and finally it goes, but you have some delays.
Right. So we're getting to the end of our time together, Marisa. Tell people where they can find you on social media, and tell them where they can find your website, etc.
Sure. On Twitter, I'm just at Marisa Pell with one S, Marisa, Pell like the Pell Grant. Or you can, simplest way to find everything I do, videos, YouTube. I do Friday webcasts. On Fridays, I do like readings for people on Fridays, so you go to YouTube and get that in your inbox every Friday. Sometimes I'm a little lax on that. If I have an event or something, I might miss a Friday and do it on a Monday, but you can get your weekly reading, and you could subscribe to my newsletter, but everything is on my website, which is connectionbeyond.com, and I am on Facebook as well.
Brilliant. We will endeavor to share your info, and if you want to go to www.xandergibb.com, you will be able to get Marisa's contact details and links from there too. Now, I always ask you before you go, are you getting anything on me right now? Anything you want to share with me?
I have to tell you that plane keeps coming through to me, and I don't think it's in a warm climate. I have to tell you, I do feel international travel, and I do feel it could still be to a colder climate and still not when the weather's hot, so it could be coming, before then. But I really see Europe as a big possibility for you, and I think that it's a combination of family and work, so I do think you'd be doing some business during this trip as well.
Right. Well, I do have family in Europe, so that is a distinct possibility. But you don't see me on Letterman or anything like that in the distant future.
Well, it's funny, but another vision just came to me about you writing something. So I don't know if you're going to be writing a script or a book, but I am seeing your name listed as an author of something coming up in the next year and a half, 2 years.
I did release my first novel last year, and I am going to do another one this year. But it's time, like everything else. I really haven't got the time to do everything that I want to do. I'm sure you appreciate exactly.
Yes, I understand.
What I mean. So I have to I have to kind of like shelve stuff, and I've been trying to do another album for 2 years, but where do you find the time, Because you can't, it's not something you can pay someone to do, to write an album for you and record it, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I'm sure you know exactly where I'm coming from. But listen, Marisa, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope you will come and join us again, and let's try and arrange for me to come to one of your shows and do an interview and stuff as well for the TV.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love for you to come on. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, so thanks so much to medium Marisa Liza Pell. Make sure you go check her out on Facebook and Twitter and social media, and you have a great week, Marisa.
Thank you, Xander. You as well.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was Marisa Liza Pell. Make sure you check her out on social media and tell her that Xander sent you. Yeah, we're very honored today. We have another guest on the show. Wendy Gritter is our next guest, and she's the executive director of New Direction in Canada and is a passionate advocate for those who have been hurt or marginalized by the church. She believes that the church is impoverished if any voices are missing from the conversation. So welcome to the show today for the first time, Wendy Gritter.
Hi, Xander.
Hi, Wendy. How are you doing?
I'm well. It's snowing like crazy here.
It is here too, and they're giving us these storm warnings like they did last week. But I'm just hibernating until I have to go out, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
So you're the executive director of New Direction Canada. Tell us a little bit about what your aims and objectives are as an organization.
Yeah, the ministry's been around a long time, and I've been there since 2002, and the organization has always wanted to somehow repair the gaps and the mess between LGBTQ people and the institutional church. Now, in the early days, that was attempted by sort of a pray away the gay kind of paradigm, which is the quickest way to piss off an LGBTQ person today. And so
Absolutely.
In my tenure, we've radically gone in a new direction. And today we nurture community where people who often come from faith backgrounds but feel alienated from the church can find a spiritual home. We help people in the coming out process. We also then do work in churches trying to challenge them to become safer and more hospitable places. And that's where we hang our hat most of the time.
Right. So where do you I want to kind of rewind a bit
Sure.
with regards to kind of like where all of this starts. Now, I consider myself to be a Christian, and I'm openly gay, and I've worked with the gay community for over 25 years, and I was kicked out of church for coming out, and I was involved in the ministry, and it broke me and separated me from Christ for so long, and when I came back, I started to want to kind of like build bridges between the LGBTQ community and the church. But I really wonder where this ideology comes from some Christians that being gay is the sin of all sins. And if you do believe it's a sin to be gay, the Bible teaches us that there is no grading in sin, so sin is sin. Why do you feel some Christians have this need to highlight this over and above other things?
Yeah, well, first of all, sex scares the living daylights out of most religious people.
Right.
And that's because the Christian religion has really, after Augustine, has poured a ton of shame and fear around the arena of sexuality. And so that makes it a difficult pick for most people who've grown up in religious systems. And then secondly, it's really easy to point the finger at someone else's experience that has nothing to do with you.
Totally.
And then thirdly, and this is absolutely atrocious, but I'm afraid that it's true. I think Christians have been socialized, earlier generations anyway, to feel a certain visceral disgust at the thought of same-sex relationships. And
right.
So when I come into the church, those are the very things that I want to address with people within the church. In the Christian framework, sex is actually a beautiful gift of God. So let's deal with all the shame and fear, first of all, in your own life, and then we can begin to expand the conversation. Secondly, don't get all hot and bothered about the things that are theoretical to you. You really have no business talking about LGBTQ matters unless you actually know LGBTQ people. And even then, you probably should shut up and listen a lot longer because it's their story, not yours. And then thirdly, to recognize that you can't baptize these negative feelings that you have as somehow Christian. You need to face the fact that out of fear and out of shame and out of othering other people, you have been socialized into this disgust, and it actually doesn't smell like Jesus. So we need to deal with it.
Right. I couldn't agree more. And I just kind of, from my own personal experiences, what I fear, and I do think, 20 years on, things have got a lot better. They've got a long way to go. But if I can prevent even one person experiencing the things I experienced, then something's working properly for me. Because when I hear of young Christians leaving the church, turning their back on God, which is exactly what I did, and I was involved in ministry, and it saddens my heart because I know from my kind of 10-year wilderness experience how lonely it made me spiritually, and how, if I'm honest, I blamed God for this. But we can't blame God for the actions of his people, because when they say they're doing these things to help you and doing these things in his name, I'm sure God sits and cries in a corner somewhere,
Yeah, absolutely. It harkens back to Gandhi, who said, I am really thrilled with your Christ. It's your Christians who have completely turned me off. Paraphrase Wendy Gritter. So absolutely. I do think the tide is turning, and I even think since 2010 there's been quite a radical shift. And one of the things I would point to is the recent Gay Christian Conference that was in Portland, Oregon. And, I've heard all sorts of inflated numbers. I think a fair estimate is that somewhere between 1,300 and 1,400 people attended the conference.
Wow.
Now, the first one I went to was in 2007, and there were just shy of 200 people there. And so you see in, 7 years that number has radically increased. Now, it means a number of things. It means gay Christians are coming out more publicly and more openly. They're coming out at younger ages. Through technology, they're connecting with one another. And another big factor at this past conference is that more and more parents, allies, and even pastors are coming out to the conference to say, we want to learn, we want to be here as a sign of our allyship, and we want to be part of, this sea change in the church. I often point to the contrast between Exodus, which was sort of the typical evangelical paradigm to say we love sexual minority persons as long as we can move them towards heterosexuality. And the peak of their sort of heyday, so to speak, was about 2001. and they hit about 800 people. And now, 2015, 1,300 to 1,400 people at the Gay Christian Conference. And I think that speaks volumes, just that sort of quick snapshot to say the tide is radically changing. Unfortunately, there's a ton of work to do. You know, we hear the stories of Leila Alcorn, the young transgender young woman who stepped in front of a transport truck because she felt so alone and rejected by her Christian parents. So clearly there's a lot to do, but I think there's a certain momentum and energy that especially our young LGBTQ people who are growing up in churches that don't seem accepting, I think they have a little bit more chutzpah kind of behind them to say, okay, you're telling me that God can't love me, but I don't believe you. I don't believe you because I have gay Christian friends who I connect with online. I don't believe you because I've read Justin Lee's book, Torn, and hopefully Wendy's book and Ken Wilson's book, and I've read all these books, and I don't believe you. I think God does love me, and I'm going to find my way. You know, they're going to go to Dan Savage's site, and they're going to watch some It Gets Better videos and say, okay, I'm going to hold my breath until I can be on my own and independent and build a community of support around myself. Absolutely.
Now, you alluded a little bit there to the fact that you've written a book. What's it called, and in essence, what is it about?
Yeah, it was published this past spring. It's called Generous Spaciousness, Responding to Gay Christians in the Church. And I wrote it primarily with evangelical leaders in mind. You know, who am I as a mainly straight gal to write a book for LGBTQ people? I mean, there are beautiful authors and creative artists and so on who have so much to offer their own community. Although I was a little bit worried that my many LGBTQ friends might feel like the book didn't push hard enough or didn't advocate for them strongly enough. Thankfully, many of them have said, no, we get it, Wendy. We get that you wrote this for the church, and you wrote it for a church that is in a lot of turmoil. You wrote it for the church that is very much struggling with the fact that people in the pews have very, very different perspectives from one another on questions of marriage equality and marriage covenants for LGBTQ people. And so the book is meant to be a word to the church in this particular season of how ought we to navigate this reality in a way that honors Christ, builds up the church, is actually a winsome public witness instead of a stench, and also then will benefit LGBTQ people within our faith communities.
Absolutely. So what advice can you give to Christians out there who are maybe not gay, but they are accepting of gay Christians, for want of a better phraseology? What advice can you give to them about how they can affect change within their own churches and communities?
Well, hopefully their perspectives on these matters have arisen out of the context of relationship. Hopefully they have LGBTQ people in their lives. And if so, I think one of the most important things that straight Christians can do today is to relinquish their own platform so that an LGBTQ person has that platform to tell their story. We all know, back from the days of Harvey Milk, who understood that when people tell their stories and people understand, these are teachers and doctors and plumbers and artists and neighbors and dog walkers and people who love children and people who listen to classical music and people who tend their garden. And, you know, when we actually, and this is so basic, but when we have the opportunity to humanize one another, then our hearts and minds change. Secondly to that, I think straight Christians themselves need to, you need to be discerning, but I think we need to understand that today there is a lot of solidarity for allies who even find themselves in very conservative settings. And so to speak up and to speak out about your experience and why your heart and mind are where they are, and to do that online where you can connect with others so you don't feel so alone, but to take the risk to do that in your community. Now, I always say I am not an advocate of cheap martyrdom. Don't get kicked out of your church because you went all AWOL on the church deacons meeting or whatever. You have to, I think, be innocent as a dove and shrewd as a serpent. You need to be strategic about talking about these matters in a way that doesn't just alienate people, but meets them where they are and invites them into the conversation. But if straight Christians who are supportive of LGBT people don't speak up, then they are inevitably contributing through their silence to the ongoing injustice.
I totally agree. I really do. I mean, I find in my, I've kind of used this talk show as a platform for LGBT issues, and as a part of this, I've found so many people have come to me privately on social media and said, things like, Xander, I'm in a church and my pastor is telling me that because I'm gay, I'm going to hell, and if I continue my relationship, that God will no longer love me. And these people have sought me out, and to me, it's been a part of my ministry to be able to minister to others, because I think that when you have had this experience yourself, it kind of makes you more zealous to be there for others, because I would never want another Christian to encounter what I have gone, what I've been through. But what would you advise your average Christian that is experiencing this right now in their everyday life at church? They're being given this message. Where should they go, Wendy? What should they do?
Well, certainly the online connections are alive and well, both through an organization like the Gay Christian Network, which reaches internationally, as well as so many Facebook groups that can connect you with people, your peers, your age and stage of life. They can inevitably then connect you with people in your own region, your own city. Truly the idea that you are the only gay Christian, even in your small town, it just isn't true.
No.
It is. You are a minority population, but you're not the only one. There will be others in your area, perhaps someone older than you who can really take you under their wing, perhaps someone who's the same age and you guys can, plot to take over the world together. That was a joke. And, the idea that I have to be isolated is not necessary in today's context. And so search. If you don't have free access to computer in your home environment, go to the library, find a way to make those connections so that you have a conversation where you feel like you're not going crazy, where someone can affirm and support you in pursuing the truth that you're loved by God, that God knows you. The fact that you're LGBTQ is not a surprise to God.
No.
He knew it from before you were born, and he loves you as you are, who you are, and wants to be part of your life, wants to be a presence that comforts you, that encourages you, that guides you. And so to nurture that interior spiritual life, no matter who your pastor is or even who your parents are, they can't steal that inner voice in your inner life. And so one of the things, that we do with our ministry is really work with people in spiritual practices that will keep their own hearts open to God and to learn to discern God's voice. And, to go to the scriptures, which for many people is very important, and instead of a book of violence, have a discerning eye to see the overarching story of God's love and desire to reconcile all things to himself. This incredible hope that's in the story of God. People can use the Bible to say just about anything, and they have, to support all kinds of things that, in my humble opinion, I don't think smell anything like Jesus. But that doesn't mean you have to buy it. It doesn't mean you have to agree. It doesn't mean you have to take that into your deepest heart. You can nurture a script for yourself that is life-giving and true, and we need to help our young people, especially as they're growing up, when there's so many insecurities and they're trying to figure things out, to have that quiet, solid rock confidence that I am a beloved child of God, and nobody and nothing can tell me that that's not true or separate me from the love of God. They can,
absolutely.
Instead of worrying about Romans 1, they can go over to Romans 8 and Romans 12 and say, there's no condemnation. No one can separate me from the love of God. And have this, real resilient spirit. Because when we, get to develop communities of LGBTQ Christian adults, that is one thing that is absolutely common, is there's a resilient faith, because you've had to sort of refuse the rejecting and alienating messages. And the reason I'm so, passionate about the church not just welcoming, but actually receiving the gifts of LGBTQ people is because they have developed a resilient faith. They've actually had to, exercise their faith muscles. Otherwise, they would have left the church a long time ago.
I think the concern is it's often younger and more vulnerable members of the Christian community that are not equipped well enough to be able to know in their heart that God loves them exactly where they are. And I think that once I had realized that for myself, that God loves me, Xander Gibb, exactly where I am now, whether I happen to be gay, straight, pink, black, blue, unconditional love is unconditional love, exactly what it says. There are no conditions to it. But when I took that from head knowledge to heart knowledge, I just kind of felt it was imperative for me to be able to share that with other people, because I know the darkness that can be attached to not knowing that.
Absolutely. And it is, in some ways, asking a great deal of a young person, a 14-year-old, to have that kind of resilient spirit. And that's why instead of being completely overwhelmed by that prospect, I think the stories of the saints through the years, I'm not Catholic, but I think there have been a lot of incredible people of God, sometimes very young, who heard the voice of God and grabbed hold of that. And in today's context, I think then, maybe someone's listening today and they're 13 and they just heard what you said, Xander, that when you really took that into your deepest being, your heart, it changed everything. I am loved. I'm loved by someone who is bigger and outside of myself, who will protect me and care for me and never leave me. And so, yes, it's asking a lot, and yet that's what the Spirit of God does in our being, is say, yep, you're mine. And, why was Joan of Arc willing to be burned? Because she knew that she knew that she knew that she knew that she was God's. And that despite everyone's accusations of heresy, that she had heard from the voice of God. And our LGBTQ kids need to have that kind of confidence that no one can snatch it away from them.
Absolutely, because it's living in that faith and not fear that actually takes you through. I think personally, that's what it was for me. When I actually began to live in faith in God, because as most Christians, I used to be, well, give me a sign, Lord, show me that I'm doing the right thing, and it's like, it's as if God would say, but Xander, that's what faith is. It's trust. It's not. There's a sign. There's a little envelope there to clarify it for you. But when it, I've often heard people say the phrase, "Oh, when it clicked," and that's exactly how it was for me. There was when it clicked for me. The devil had lost. The devil using other Christians to attack me because of my sexuality had lost, because none of that mattered anymore, because I had accepted that wholesome truth that Jesus died for me and that God loved me exactly where I was, and that was the turning point, I think, for me. So we're getting to I could talk to you all day, but we're getting to the end of our time together. I hope you'll come back and talk to us again sometime. Tell people about where they can find your organization and where they can find you on social media.
Sure. Well, Facebook is where I do a lot of connecting. Wendy Gritter. I think I'm the only one with that full name. Our website is newdirection.ca, and for instance, we have a retreat coming up at the beginning of March that literally has saved people's lives. We've had people coming on the edge of wanting to end their lives because they felt so alone and in despair, and realized that there was actually a warm, loving community that just enfolded them. Twitter, I'm at WGritter, or our ministry handle is at New Direction Can for Canada, CAN. So we're out and about in the online world, and even more so, we have live human beings that love to open their hearts to others, and so we can be emailed info@newdirection.ca, and Beth is our Director of Community. Denise is our Coordinator of Youth Services and loves to connect with queer youth. So there are people who want to hear your story and want to be that encouragement to you.
Absolutely. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us today. As I said, I hope you'll come back and talk to us again. Make sure to check Wendy out. We'll share her information again after the show. But for now, thank you so much for joining us, Wendy.
Thanks, Xander. I'd love to come back. I feel like we just got started.
I do too. You have to come for a longer segment next time. But you have a great week, and I look forward to talking to you again very soon.
Super. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Take care. That was Wendy Gritter from New Direction Canada. Make sure you check her out on social media. Thanks to everyone who has made today's show possible. Thanks to Tony Losacco for co-hosting. Thanks to Marisa, Liza, Pell from Connection Beyond. And once again, thanks to Wendy Gritter from New Direction Canada. Don't forget to check out episode 11 of my TV talk show Xandermonium, Friday, February 6th on Channel 68 and on Optimum, and on Channel 34 on Verizon. And it will be available for all of you outside the area afterwards on the Xandermonium channel. We will be back with you again next week with my co-host Ty Paul Egar, and I can't think offhand who the guests are, but we will let you know during the week. So thank you very much, and I love you all. Bye-bye.